Right, so on the face of it, you would imagine that with war looming in Lebanon now, with Israel having been amassing on the Lebanese border, with rocket fire being exchanged between the two states, a million Lebanese nationals, a fifth of the population having been displaced, all reminiscent of what we've observed for months happening in Gaza, this would be a golden opportunity for Keir Starmer's government to show some leadership, to do right by British nationals living in Lebanon, of which there are estimated to be between some 5,000 and 6,000, and move heaven and earth to get them out and bring them home to safety. It would give him and his government some much needed brownie points, as polling of buyer's remorse for electing him and his party to power has now seen his polling slump so hard and fast, Rishi Sunak's Tories, after 14 years of their cruelty, are now preferred to him. Instead, Starmer and co have managed to balls even this up entirely, done something so abominably offensive. The clamouring for him to go will only grow louder, because not only has the UK government failed to charter sufficient flights out of Lebanon to rescue every Brit that may be out there, but they're going to charge them for being rescued as well. Right, so the Starmer government, if there is anything consistent about it, it is their uncanny ability to lurch from one self-inflicted crisis to another. Starmer is up to his eyeballs in donation scandals, as still more comes out. There's no money to lift kids out of poverty. There's no money to keep pensioners warm this winter. There's no money to scrap tuition fees as once promised, but there's always money for war. There's always money for Ukraine. What exactly is happening with regards to our military and Israel, as any questions by MPs in relation to the goings-on from the RAF base on Cyprus have now been banned as well. And now the news comes out that Starmer and co are going to charge people to be rescued from Lebanon as Israel prepares, and indeed as I'm writing this, there are articles saying it has already begun coming out, that Israel are now moving into Lebanese territory and the invasion has actually begun. Literally charging people to be rescued. Your own people. Well, what if they can't afford it then? What do they do if they can't pay? Oh well, there's not enough space for everyone anyway, it seems. So it's survival of the richest apparently then. Abandon the rest. What the heck, Damo? What's going on here? Starmer's charging people to be rescued? I know I'm as incredulous as you no doubt are by this, but the BBC, of all people, have clumsily dropped a bit of a clanger. As out of touch as their head honchos are these days, the sort of people who sit on their boards, for example, perhaps they simply couldn't see the problem at editorial stage. But here's an excerpt from their online coverage where they, I can only presume accidentally, tell us everything. The UK government has chartered a commercial flight out of Lebanon to assist British nationals trying to flee the fighting, the Foreign Secretary has announced. The situation was volatile and had the potential to deteriorate quickly, David Lammy said, just hours before Israel announced the start of a localised and targeted ground operation in southern Lebanon. British nationals and their spouse or partner and children under the age of 18 are eligible to take the flight, with vulnerable people a priority. The plane is scheduled to leave on Wednesday from Beirut, which was hit by fresh Israeli airstrikes overnight. As of last week, there were thought to be between 4,000 and 6,000 UK nationals, including dependents, in Lebanon. The UK government will pay to charter the flight, which will depart from Beirut Rafik Hariri International Airport, but British nationals will be expected to pay a fee of £350 per seat. British nationals and dependents will be eligible to request a space on the flight. Any non-British dependents boarding the flight will require a visa, granted for at least 6 months, to enter the UK. Any further flights in the coming days will depend on demand and the security situation on the ground, the Foreign Office said. The safety of British nationals in Lebanon continues to be our utmost priority, Lammy stressed. You just can't make this up. This level of incompetence, by presumably Lammy, is off the charts. It is so utterly, offensively inept. One plane has been chartered, and it isn't taking passengers until tomorrow, when Israel is invading today, and has already been striking Beirut for days and days. It is leaving Beirut, this flight, which has already been one of the hardest hit areas by Israel, courtesy of rocket fire. Assuming it's a commercial passenger flight or some such, the number of seats could be up to 800. I've no idea if military craft are capable of taking more than that, but I can guarantee they cannot take up to 6,000 people, and that's still only the estimate. Lammy, wants to wait and see what demand to leave is, and says the safety of British nationals is a priority. I'm pretty sure, you call me a bit of a over-optimistic or an overestimator if you like, but I'm pretty sure that the demand will be close to 100%, Dave, because the whole damn world has already seen what Israel have done to Gaza, and if they now plan to invade Lebanon and do likewise there, that is exactly what everybody expects to see again. Whilst Western leaders, Western politicians, too in hock to the Israel lobby, like Starmer, like Lammy, wring their hands and still hope for the best as Netanyahu keeps spitting in their faces. It's not Palestinians in the firing line we're talking about here, it's British nationals. Israel couldn't give a damn who is in their way, wherever they come from. They've been utterly indiscriminate, as we know. So this is anything but putting our own people's safety first, is it? One plane. It's reminiscent of the sinking of the Titanic. Not enough lifeboats. In this case, not enough seats on one plane. But when they said women and children first, they weren't charging for places on those lifeboats, were they? Yet Starmer and co are going to charge Brits lucky enough to get a seat £350 a head to be rescued. Survival of the richest. If you can't afford it, well, maybe you better flee to Syria like so many Lebanese people are doing. 1 million of them have now been displaced, many of them heading to the Syrian border. It seems they might actually treat you better than your own government will. And we're talking about Syria. I googled the price of a standard one-way flight from Beirut Rafik Hariri Airport to London Heathrow. They're showing dates from the 1st of November currently, but a one-way, non-stop flight from Beirut to Heathrow via Middle East Airlines costs £207. Assuming they have to make a profit, it's a damn sight cheaper still than what Starmer and Lammy are charging for what is supposed to be a rescue. And even if you factor in that it might be a commercial flight or that it's last minute, it's still a lot of money. It still feels like people are being overcharged, even if it was just a normal flight. Of course they're being overcharged, given it's a rescue. They shouldn't have to be paying at all. They're being rescued. But it seems even the British government of Keir Starmer can't even negotiate a charter flight properly. And then they have the nerve to charge those being rescued the cost of it. But then it gets even worse. Somehow this manages to get even worse. Although they are prioritising the most vulnerable, as long as they can pay, of course, the flight is only valid for British citizens, their spouses and their British-born dependents under the age of 18. Any non-British dependents, i.e. anyone, any children that may have been adopted out there or were born out there and registered as Lebanese, they require a bloody visa. I'm sure there's plenty of time to nip down to the British Embassy and get all that sorted and not miss the flight. Oh, whoops, sorry, already booked. And even if you have a visa, they may still be barred from taking a seat on this one plane because it's leaving Lebanon tomorrow. Lammy compounded his idiocy even more by speaking to the press and saying the situation is fast moving and that he urges people to leave. But they can't all leave because there aren't enough seats, because you only booked one bloody plane, and if they can't afford £350 a head, they can't leave anyway, or will have to make their own way if they can do that. And to that end, the BBC also very helpfully provided some further information on that, having interviewed a Brit who is not taking this charter flight. But you wouldn't believe the measures she's had to take to get out of Lebanon. Victoria Lupton, 37, is planning to leave Lebanon on Wednesday with her young family, but not on the flight chartered by the UK government. A week ago, the British government emailed us saying we should be buying our own flight, which was quite a difficult message to receive because there were no flights to be had, she told the BBC on Tuesday. I eventually managed to get a flight to Athens, which is leaving tomorrow. Then, last night, late at night, the British government messaged saying they had chartered one flight that goes to Birmingham and would I like a place on it. But that's leaving tomorrow, so I'm sticking with my existing flight. She spends a couple of months a year in Lebanon as the founder and chief executive of Scenario, a non-profit organisation which helps educate Middle Eastern women and children through theatre and play. She told the BBC, "I'm feeling sick. All of us are feeling sick and living in a state of terror. I have a 3-year-old and I was moving my daughter's cot as far away as possible from the windows to make sure she didn't get hit. None of us are sleeping. We are only sleeping a few hours a night. It's a very, very difficult, worrying time." Of course it will be. We can all appreciate that. But she was told to make her own way back to Britain. Understandably, there are few flights right now available. People don't want to be flying to Lebanon with the state the country is in and the target that's been painted on it right now. And so she's having to get out to get back to the UK via Greece. But also the terror being felt amongst British citizens there right now is clearly palpable. They have all seen, after all, just like the rest of us, what has become of Gaza over the last 11 months. And the British governments, both the Tory ones and, well, red Tory ones that we've got now's response to that, which has amounted to wishing Israel well and sitting on their hands as they carry on with their genocide. Now that it's aimed at Lebanon, and a repeat is on the cards because Israel continued to be armed by the West, seemingly more important than the rescuing of our own people. Instead of laying on more flights, getting planes out there from here, if needs be, to get our people out of harm's way, the MOD has now sent 700 troops to Cyprus in preparation for evacuations. But surely that's got to be more expensive than just getting more planes where they need to be to get people out now. And certainly something British people here would not begrudge being a cost met by the public purse. It's a choice to not do that. It's economic stupidity as well as a completely callous and unfeeling choice to settle on. As you can imagine, I'm not the only one to have picked up on this story, as social media has had a field day. NIC said, "I'm sorry, maybe I'm dumb," and that is a possibility. But how does our government actually justify charging its nationals £350 per person to leave Lebanon on the eve of war? What for we pay taxes for? What does our government actually give us? Surely a free safe flight home. You're not dumb, sunshine. Our government are just that much of a disgrace. Ben Tomeo is possibly even more jaded than I am on this story, having said, the British government is chartering a single flight out of Lebanon to help Brits escape death by American and British weaponry being unleashed on Beirut. Presumably the Foreign Office first asked permission from Netanyahu to get one plane load of British citizens out. I wouldn't bet on Netanyahu giving the remotest semblance of a toss, even if the UK had asked him, to be honest. And commentator Zoe Gardner made the salient point of, so we're rescuing Brits then? What about the Lebanese? When she wrote, we're telling Brits to leave Lebanon and sending troops to Cyprus to assist with evacuation if needed. If you have a British passport, that's what you get. If you have a Lebanese passport, we sold Israel bombs that they will use against you. If you try taking a boat to safety, well, good point. Will we have Lebanese people in small boats arriving on our shores in the future because we abandoned them whilst handing more military gear to Israel to target them with? Don't go complaining about migrants then if they do. This is frankly obscene. To charge people for rescuing them. Starmer and his rancid government cannot go fast enough. They are hardly working in our interest if everything they do for us, even to the extent of saving our lives, comes at a price. And so much more of what they've been doing has been in self-interest. Where the Western allies of Israel appear content to continue aligning themselves with Netanyahu's genocidal aims and continue equipping him whilst they're at it, though, the worm might be turning in Jordan, as comments from the Jordanian foreign minister aimed at Israel have gone viral, possibly the most ardent takedown of their conduct by a government official anywhere to date. It's well worth the watch, and you could do that and more if you hit up this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.